Welcome to a brand new episode of Strange Encounters, where today we continue to examine the mysterious and unexplained world of extraterrestrial and UFO UAP encounters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell and send your unexplained and strange encounters to verystrangeencounters@gmail.com. Join us on Reddit at r/verystrangeencounters. You can donate to the channel at Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. The links are below. So, sit back, relax, and prepare to be amazed by the mysteries of the universe on this episode of Strange Encounters. My 3 sightings, the Phoenix Lights, and 2 up-close, face-to-face alien encounters in the desert while camping, by Tuza Who. On my way home from work, as a hospice RN in Mesa, Arizona, to my home in Phoenix, Arizona, I was driving on the I-60, which was under construction. I had to exit every overpass, which was all dirt. I was high on a dirt hill when I saw the massive boomerang-shaped craft coming towards me. I jumped out of my truck as it approached me. There was a nearby streetlight, which was parallel to me, due to the construction dirt hill I was on top of. The tip of the left wing went almost over my head by about 30 feet. I could clearly see the bottom skin of the craft due to the streetlight nearby and the light from the bottom of the craft. The whole bottom was one piece, no rivets, no seams, gray color and reflective about 20%, but mostly a matte finish. The bottom was covered with thousands of thumbprint-like indentations all over the bottom. The nearest light was an opening in the bottom of the craft that had an inner lining tube that was silver in color. The light looked like lava flowing down, stopping, and flowing back up into the bottom of the craft. It looked like a thick liquid that was orange crushed orange, and as it thinned out, it looked yellow. I was close enough to think I'd get burned, but there was no heat, no sound, and no odor. As it flew off, there was a colorful mist that followed it, waving like a flag. I was overwhelmed with a feeling of gratitude. I stood there and cried as it floated out of sight. It was an amazingly positive event in my life. Ever since, I've been a much more considerate, calmer, and more forgiving person. For all of the 25 years since then, that feeling has never left me. I'm on UFO Witness, Season 1, Episode 5. The reenactment has the bottom of the craft wrong. My first in-person, face-to-face encounter was about 2005. I was meeting some friends in the desert for a hike. I got there early, about 4 a.m., and I figured I'd nap a bit. As I pulled into the parking lot for the trail and backed into my space, my headlights were right on 3 beings about 20 feet from my truck. The tall one was about 5.5 feet, and 2 smaller ones in front of it about 3.5 feet. They wore head-to-toe silver suits with a mesh-like fabric over the face, like a ramen noodle woven shape where you'd expect eyes to be. They were plump, like a gingerbread man cookie, not as fat, but that shape. Gunmetal gray color, slightly silverfish, and somewhat reflective of my bright headlights shining on them. I froze, staring at them, and they were staring at me. After about 30 seconds or a bit more, the 2 smaller ones at the same time turned to their right and walked away. As they did, they appeared to be 1/2 inch wide when standing sideways towards me. The taller one just looked at me as I looked at them. I put my truck in forward and took off. My guess is their suits have a camouflage type system in place. Had they been standing sideways as I backed into the parking lot, they would have blended in with the shrubs behind them and I'd not have noticed them. I did not see a craft and did not stay around to look for one. They didn't look threatening to me, but also didn't look welcoming. The second sighting was in 2015. I was in the southwest USA in the desert camping. It was about 2 a.m., and I was still in the truck cab eating pistachios and tossing the shells out of the open window. There was a huge full moon behind me, about 2 o'clock in the sky, which was so bright I could read by the light of it. I was watching it in the rearview mirror. All at once, a tall being walked about 6 feet behind my truck and stopped. I turned around and looked out of the open back window. It was about 8 feet tall, very, very skinny, long arms with elbows below its waist area, foot-long skinny neck, oval head that had what looked like a 4-foot beard or tube hanging from its lower face. I couldn't make out the feet or hands. It was walking like it was struggling, like if you walk in a swimming pool with the resistance of the water. As it stopped, it barely moved its shoulders, but that freakish long neck turned the big head at me. I don't know if it saw me in the truck. I froze. It soon turned its head forward and continued on walking. It was bizarrely thin, like an insect. I got scared thinking it's so thin it's hungry. I took off, camping equipment in the back of my truck flying to the side of the dirt road as I drove. I went back 4 months later in the daylight after building up the nerve to go back. I found the pile of pistachio shells, so I knew the exact spot where I was. I saw nothing unusual. I drove around a bit. It was a nice day and found a place that looked like a good hiking spot. As I got out of the truck, maybe about 3 in the afternoon, I heard diesel engines struggling digging, like backhoes, earth movers, dump trucks dumping a load and banging the scooper to unload all the dirt. Trucks backing up with a beep beep sound, but there was nothing around. I was in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. No other cars around for miles. I couldn't figure where the digging noise was coming from, but I actually drove around looking for a construction site, but I was alone for miles in the desert. I wondered, went back to the spot where I heard the digging. I got on my hands and knees and listened to the ground. It was coming from under the desert landscape. I was standing on where the digging was coming from. As I stood up, I saw 2 very shiny white pickup trucks facing the front of my truck, onyx black windows. They were so shiny the sun reflecting on them hurt my eyes. Driving in the desert piles dust on a truck. These looked like they just came off a showroom. I got scared. They weren't there a minute ago. I guess they saw me listening to the ground, and I guess I wasn't supposed to hear that sound. As I got back in my truck, I saw 2 more white trucks exactly the same behind me, facing me. I drove off, looking if they were following me. They weren't. The 4 trucks came out of nowhere and were so clean and shiny it was so odd. The windows tinted black. As I got to the nearest road, my heart sank, as there were 2 more of the same trucks waiting for me at the intersection, facing each way, so whichever way I was going, 1 truck would be right behind me. As I got on the road, the truck behind me followed me right on my bumper. I was going 90 miles per hour, and the truck was right behind me. The other truck then was trying to pass me. I was swerving 2 lanes to keep it from passing me. I came up to an exit to some buildings and decided to give it a shot and exited. At the same time, the 2 trucks slowed down and made a U-turn and went back. They could have taken me out in the desert, and no one would have found me or my truck, but they didn't. Did they want to kill me on the road? I don't know, but I was terrified to go home thinking they'd be there. But I never saw them again and never went back. My thought is, I discovered a government installation being built, maybe for national security, so I keep that location to myself. It might be very important to keep their location unknown. My other thought, why chase me when that giant insect-like being was walking around a few months prior about 4 miles from where I heard the digging sound? Is that location ET or human or government? I'm still scared stiff, and I have not talked about it at all till lately. I reported my 2 sightings to MUFON. I did not tell them about the site where the digging was going on, as I was afraid to disclose that area and for retaliation from whoever was digging around out there. Could there be a connection with the being I saw and the digging underground? I'm very curious what's going on out there, but I won't return. It's Okay by Snacka1. This took place in Australia, in the suburbs of Sydney. Basically, I got up in the middle of the night to pee. I'd laid awake for a good 10 minutes debating if I really wanted to get out of bed, so I was wide awake. All our doors were open. It was the middle of summer, so it was really hot. I glanced in my twin's room and thought my kid was half sitting up, waving a doll at me. In the bathroom, I could look straight at her bed, and her bed has a high foot on the end, so I could only see like the top half of her head and this doll she was moving. I said, "Can't you sleep?" And it stood up. It was all black with no features I could make out. Humanoid, about the size of a 4-year-old. I knew it was looking at me, though I couldn't see its eyes. I heard it in my head saying, "It's okay, they're okay," over and over. I was calm until another one of them appeared from the direction of the twins' bed. I kind of panicked in my head. It just kind of told the other one to go, which I couldn't hear, but I was aware of it telling the other one that. When I became aware of the second alien and started to panic, I could hear the first one split its focus between me and the second and tell it to leave. Then its full focus hit back on me. This all happened telepathically, but somehow I knew it was happening. The second one moved weirdly, like jerky but smooth at the same time. It went above the bed and disappeared through the wall. The first one kept up the "it's okay" thing the whole time. It kept eyes locked with me a few more seconds, then just vanished. I peed and went back to bed. I didn't check on the twins, but I wanted to, but the whole "it's okay" just kept going, even when I was back in bed. I went to sleep. I think it was waving something over my kid. I have no idea what, though. The whole incident was very odd. My first and most profound sphere sighting by Blood Willow. One of my most profound sightings occurred when I was a teen, around 15 or so. I was sitting outside of my parents' house, sneaking a cigarette on the tailgate of my dad's truck, when I first heard what sounded like a rumble coming from behind me. Similar to the bass from a distant but approaching high-end car audio system, the commotion grew louder and heavier with each passing second. Soon the rumble turned to a roar. This sound grew to become deafening and is a bit hard to describe. In my best attempt, it sounded like a continuous lion's roar, just insanely loud. It pierced the ears and made the hairs on my neck stand up. Standing on the bed of the truck near the cab, I looked towards the sky for its source, as it sounded to be emanating from there. Reaching its intense crescendo, the cacophony abruptly ceased. Everything went eerily silent, just long enough for me to notice a glint of white light in the sky over my shoulder. As soon as I turned my head, the glowing white sphere, at about treetop level, and somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch in diameter at arm's length, shot over my head. Instantly, I was slammed by a huge boom and a blast of extremely hot wind. Startled, shaken, and blown onto my keister in the bed of the truck, mostly from being so frightened I actually attempted to jump away from the object, I only caught one more glimpse of the white ball as it disappeared over the neighbor's rooftop. When I say huge boom, I mean sonic boom huge. The shockwave rattled windows, set off car alarms, and I could feel it deep in my chest. It scared the heck out of me. Leaping out of the truck and bolting to the house, I slipped on the tile floor as I rounded the hallway corner to alert my parents. Having heard the explosion and seeing me running in like a bat out of hell, white as a sheet, they instantly assumed I had done something terrible. It took a bit of explaining and walking them out front to the sound of car alarms going off and neighbors venturing out front as well for them to accept that I wasn't the source. Alien Costume by LiquidNova77. This happened about an hour ago at about 5 a.m. while I was taking my dogs outside. I didn't have to be up early, but I couldn't sleep in any longer, so I got up, made some coffee, and let the pups out. One of which is a tiny Shih Tzu puppy, so I have to actually go out in the grass with him. I live in a semi-rural area in the southern US, and property is respected around here, so you can imagine my shock when I look out at the tree line roughly 60 feet away and see a beige-colored, stereotypical-looking alien just peeking around a tree at me and the dogs. I froze. My first instinctive thought was, who the heck is wearing a costume and trespassing? Being a creep, and then my adult dog sees it, lets out a deep bark, and it bolted. The weirdest part was how it ran. Not human-like whatsoever. The only logical explanation I have is that some weirdo had the money to buy a super expensive Halloween costume, decided to pull a prank in the strangest location and time, and somehow was such a great actor that he was able to manipulate his body in the oddest way possible to stick to the script. Or it's a beige alien, of which I cannot find any similar reports of that color by other people. Anyway, I just came here to share the strangeness, I suppose. My Personal Triangle Story by Miss Mayonnaise. Almost 3 years ago, my grandfather passed away. He was this hippie Navy med for 20 years. Then he went on to be a trauma nurse at our local hospital for an additional 20 years. He was a blast to be around, always questioning the universe, how things worked, and the way we as humans worked, all while blasting Pink Floyd or some Led Zeppelin with a drink in hand. He was an amazing man, but he struggled with a lot of past trauma, PTSD, and nosedived into alcoholism when my grandmother passed a decade prior. His decline in health was quickly gruesome, but nevertheless expected. Myself and my cousins, mother, father, aunt, and siblings all stayed with him at his house for the last 2 weeks of his life, taking care of him. If you've had a family member pass at home, you know the whole coroner process and how they come to retrieve the recently passed loved ones. Well, shortly after he was taken, all of my family leaves for funeral arrangement proceedings, seeing other family, and had to get the younger ones back home, etc., etc., making me the only one left at the house. Now, a majority of my childhood was spent with my grandmother and grandfather, because my parents mentally couldn't take care of me. They gave me all the love and care a kid could ask for. So, with that being said, I didn't want to leave so soon. It just felt wrong to leave. After sitting for about 30 minutes, I got a call from a lifelong friend, Beth. Mom had rung her and told her the news, and she wanted to come see me for support. I told her absolutely, I'd love to see her, but I just requested that we do one thing. To go on the back porch and watch the stars like me and my papa used to do. She obliged and came over about an hour before sunset. The sky was so clear and the most vivid orange pink I've seen, with not one cloud in sight. We lay down a blanket on the back porch, pop open a drink, and wait for the sky to start darkening while talking about some great memories we've shared with our grandparents. Now, here it is, dudes. Out of nowhere, clouds start rolling in, and from our region, summers are hot and dry with a lack of rainfall. I mean, these clouds are dark and heavy, like the kind of clouds with heat lightning. So our attention was immediately caught by this, as the forecast was sunny the whole week, and we started trolling each other about weather control. And what would you guess? Aliens. Something that still haunts me is looking at Beth while lying on the porch and saying, if there really are people or things out there, do you think they'd ever wave hi? Look, we're two young women from an extremely small town, with small town jobs and small town lives. We laugh and joke about these things as to someone who really likes memes. It's an escape to think outside the box, but we never truly considered in a million years what we saw. I get this probably seems like a big joke, but I've reached a point in my life where I want this to be heard, and hopefully one day connect with someone that has had similar experiences so it doesn't feel so lonely. Well, we stopped laughing, because as soon as we knew it, a perfect equilateral triangle descended from the clouds. Perfect sides, perfect angles, completely smooth, and the exact off-whiteness as the clouds above. This thing was directly above us. You ever wonder why people don't get photos, videos when they could have? Well, I do from my standpoint. We were frozen, paralyzed by fear and awe. I couldn't even take my eyes off of it when I whispered to her, "You're seeing this, right?" What she said cemented my fears. Yep, it's just hovering over us. I don't know if it was 5 seconds or 5 minutes. We stayed like that. It was 100% silent, approximately 30 yards diameter, and honestly, could have been bigger than that. Being ill-equipped for this, I was finally able to break eye contact and nod, poke at Beth to get inside. We left everything but our keys in the blanket. We waited inside for 2 hours, and the thing was still there when we ran to our vehicles. Since then, I've been over to the house multiple times because my eldest cousin inherited it. That's the only time in my life anything like this has happened. I'll never forget or be able to explain what we saw. Aliens are a pretty cool idea, but I think maybe it was more of a military craft? I don't know. Maybe my papa knew some unknown higher-ups. Maybe someone up there wanted to look upon us as we were unknowingly looking upon them. In this next segment, we're looking at some of the most classic and well-known cases of encounters with the strange, including sightings of unidentified flying objects, alien abductions, ghost stories, cryptid encounters, and other unexplained phenomena. So, sit back and prepare to be taken on a journey through some of the most captivating and mysterious stories of the strange and unknown. In this episode, we take a look at the Pascagoula UFO incident of 1973. Famous encounters, the Pascagoula UFO incident. The Pascagoula UFO incident of 1973 is one of the most intriguing cases in the history of UFO sightings. The incident took place on October 11, 1973, when 2 fishermen, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, were fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. What they witnessed that night has been the subject of much debate and speculation ever since. The encounter. According to Hickson and Parker's account, they saw a blue light shining above the trees on the riverbank. As they approached the light, they claimed to have seen a large, oval-shaped craft hovering about 2 feet off the ground. The craft had a bluish tint and was about 30 feet long and 10 feet wide. The men also reported that the craft had no visible means of propulsion, such as wings or rotors. As the 2 men stood there in shock, a door on the craft opened and 3 humanoid figures emerged. These beings were about 5 feet tall, had gray, wrinkled skin, and crab-like claws for hands. The creatures levitated Hickson and Parker into the craft, where they were subjected to a medical examination. Hickson and Parker claimed that the beings communicated with them telepathically and probed their bodies with some kind of device. The entire encounter lasted about 20 minutes, after which the men were released unharmed. Aftermath. After the incident, Hickson and Parker went to the local sheriff's office to report what had happened. The sheriff initially thought the 2 men were drunk or on drugs, but after a polygraph test, he concluded that they were telling the truth. Barely 3 hours after the incident took place, an interview with Hickson and Parker was conducted by Sheriff Fred Diamond and Captain Glenn Ryder. This interview was recorded on tape, and unknown to the men, the tape recorder was left running while Hickson and Parker were alone in the room. Both men were obviously shaken by their encounter and privately discussed the incident between them. There was no indication of deception or that they had fabricated their account of the events that took place. A transcription of the interview is available on the NICAP.org website, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. The case quickly gained national attention, and UFO researchers descended on Pascagoula to investigate. The men were subjected to numerous interviews and tests, including hypnosis, to try to uncover more details about their encounter. Despite some minor inconsistencies in their stories, both men maintained that their experience was real. The incident sparked a renewed interest in UFO sightings, and many people came forward with their own accounts of sightings in the area. The case was even discussed in Congress, and a few years later, the National Enquirer offered a reward for anyone who could provide evidence of extraterrestrial life. 45 years after the incident took place, in 2019, another witness came forward. Her sighting of the UFO on the same night as the abductions helps to corroborate the men's story. Maria Blair was waiting with her husband Jerry Blair for him to leave on a boat to work offshore. While they were waiting, Jerry fell asleep, and Maria saw a blue light in the sky that appeared to be streaking back and forth. She thought it was a plane or a helicopter at the time. Maria witnessed the blue light moving in the sky for an incredible 30 minutes before it went out of sight. "We hear this loud water. Just something fell in the water. It was a loud splash," Blair said. "The water was just rippling, and when I looked down, that's when it looked like a person in the water. I was looking just right below me. I was watching two men being abducted by a UFO," she said. When she would talk about it, I would tell her to shut up. "People are going to think you're crazy," said Jerry Blair. Maria came forward after seeing a recent media report about the incident. She thought her testimony would help give validation to Hickson and Parker's story. As with any UFO sighting, there have been those who have criticized and dismissed the Pascagoula incident as a hoax or a case of misidentification. Some have suggested that the men may have been suffering from sleep paralysis or hallucinations, while others have accused them of seeking attention or profit. Despite the skepticism, the Pascagoula incident remains one of the most compelling UFO sightings in history. Hickson and Parker both maintained their story until their deaths, and no evidence has ever been found to definitively prove or disprove their claims. The Pascagoula UFO incident of 1973 remains a fascinating case that has captivated the public's imagination for decades. Whether it was a genuine encounter with extraterrestrial beings or a case of mistaken identity, it continues to spark debate and speculation among UFO enthusiasts and skeptics alike. Regardless of one's opinion on the matter, the Pascagoula incident serves as a reminder that there are still many mysteries in the universe that we have yet to fully understand. Thanks for watching another episode of Strange Encounters. We hope you enjoyed hearing about the mysterious and unexplained stories that we shared today. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll never miss out on any of our future episodes, and you'll help us continue to bring you more fascinating stories and encounters. We love to hear from our viewers, so send your own experiences with the unknown to our email at verystrangeencounters@gmail.com. You can also join us on Reddit at r/verystrangeencounters. If you enjoyed the video and would like to support us, join our Patreon page or go to buymeacoffee.com, both of which are linked in the video description and in the pinned comment below. Your support really helps this channel continue to bring you new and amazing stories. Thank you again for tuning in to Strange Encounters. We appreciate the support of everyone who listens to the channel. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and watch out for the unknown.